everybody, and welcome back to DevDive Side Table, a conversational podcast where we take a deep dive into the world of indie tabletop gaming development and uncover the stories behind the games we love. On this week's dive, we welcome Nick Francia, Marketing and Creative Director of Gehenna Gaming, a boutique immersive events company with a focus on horror tabletop gaming, LARP, convention organized play, and game publishing and distribution. Nick, welcome to the show, bud.
Hey, thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, this is great. I met you at PAX Unplugged this year, which is a running theme of DevDive Side Table. As you can see, folks, a lot of relationships were made at PAX Unplugged. I'll be honest, when I first made my appointment, I had no idea what I was getting into. I didn't really know anything about Gehenna Gaming. And when you took me to the kind of like the back, we sat at a table and and then I heard what you guys do. And it was fascinating to me that I wanted to get you on the show proper because I think what you're doing is kind of special at Gehenna Gaming.
Oh, thanks.
And then also you have a cool little TTRPG you guys are working on. So that'll be fun to talk about. So Nick, real quick, what is Gehenna Gaming's like main focus? Let's start there.
So I always like to pitch that Gehenna Gaming is a like immersive events company. Like our main bread and butter that we really kind of got famous for is that we go to conventions, other private events, and we set up gaming tracks for those conventions. So if you're a publisher, to kind of backtrack, when we originally started, we were just running games that we liked, connecting GMs, helping them get badges, and basically providing value to the ticket at these conventions. That's kind of what started that all out. And then kind of towards it, as we started getting bigger and bigger and more popular, we actually were able to make a nice like business model out of it where we meet with publishers. The publishers will actually be able to use us to showcase their games and demo their games at these conventions. And then we have this really awesome curated team of amazing GMs, about 50 to 60 of them that can be called out and forced for any given convention. It's all volunteer basis, which is great. But the GMs get paid, so it's nice to pay them for their time. They also get, the badge as well. So not only is it a pretty like profitable thing for them to do, but they still get to enjoy the con. And we have like ways that we kind of like sequence our GMs into doing that. And yeah, that's kind of like what our mainstay has been. I mean, we started that. Gehenna was started in, I believe, 2019 was the first year, and that was actually before I even joined up with the company. And then, of course, that was like their big debut. Our big debut was at 2019 PAX, and then a little something called the pandemic happened, and then all of a sudden PAX and other conventions were off the table.
Yeah.
Till like 2022, basically. And during that time, we kind of had to like, all right, well, what do we do? And we kind of made the discovery and decision that a lot of people made was we're going to turn to like Twitch and streaming, and basically going online with a lot of things. So we actually ran. I want to say I don't know how factual this claim to fame is, but it's pretty damn close. I believe we were, if not the first, one of the first online conventions to come out post pandemic, because the country got shut down like late February, and I think it was March 13th we had the first virtual horror con, which the whole idea was like, all right, we're going to give you the con experience. You're going to get panels, you're going to be able to sign up for games, we're going to have like special vendors, we had all these giveaways, and it turned what was kind of like our small team into something like big. So that was actually the first event I worked with Gehenna for, and we kept doing that for a bit. And then, of course, we were able to get back into conventions, and that's kind of how we started exploding out and expanding from there. And then I want to say about 2-3 years ago, the idea came up that hey, all these publishers, they're making some great stuff, but we also have a team of talented writers and a lot of creatives. We should make our own TTRPG. And so now we're publishing our first TTRPG. We had a very awesome, successful backer kit. We learned a ton of stuff from that. And yeah, we're kind of flourishing slowly but surely, which has been our kind of method going forward.
That's awesome. I kind of want to go back to one of the first things you said here, which was bringing value to the convention ticket. For people who don't know, these conventions, especially board gaming and tabletop gaming specific conventions, when you buy your ticket, you go, you could see panels, you could do all kinds of things, you could play games. There are free play tables where you can go and just play with your friends or whatever. You could join, usually Dungeons and Dragons has a huge presence where you can sign up for various games, get a table time, go play for 2.5 hours, whatever it may be, pre-made characters and whatnot. Now, what Gehenna is doing is expanding that for the convention by saying it's not just D&D, ladies and gentlemen. It's not just these top 3 popular TTRPGs. There's a flavor for everyone, and we're going to provide the convention the means of running as many of these diverse games as possible. And that's what really drew me to what Gehenna has been doing is, when I'm walking around, I could see Monster of the Week as I'm showing Monster of the Week. There's Marvel's new multiverse role-playing game. I mean, there's dozens upon dozens, if not hundreds of games. And Gehenna's list of what they offer that for you to play, it could be a little overwhelming, but it's amazing because you really can find exactly what you're looking for. And
Yeah,
it's almost like that try before you buy sort of situation, and that's the part that I think is super valuable to publishers, to cons, to random booths. If I was running a booth that was selling a bunch of TTRPGs, I would find the one I have the most copies of, and I'd say, "Hey, Gehenna, can you run a game of this book? Because have you heard of it?" And I'm sure you have. Doing that is an invaluable sales pitch for what you'd be doing. How did Gehenna get involved? How did that spark to offer that to conventions?
like the whole how did we start just being like, hey, we're gonna run contracts, or how did we start more of letting the publishers kind of contact us and be like, hey, you should run our games?
Kind of both. Where it's not a renting out GMs and DMs is not unusual. You could find a lot of board game cafes that do that all the time, or they bring people in to run games for them. That's not unusual, but you're doing it on such a bigger scale. It almost feels like it's an interconnected, nationwide kind of network of this very niche market that is, fortunately for everyone, blowing up right now.
Yeah.
Over the last 4 or 5 years, that was kind of like the blessing of the pandemic too. Is like these the way you could play these games online has gotten so much easier.
Oh, absolutely.
It's spread like a web, right? Pun intended, I guess. So it's really, how did Gehenna come up with this business model, and what were the challenges bringing this to this scale that you're now running it at?
So I think the first thing, first, is to establish that we're not the first people to kind of specialize in this. We have a really close relationship with the organization Games on Demand, which honestly definitely pushes more variety than we do. But it's just they have a different model than us, and it's been really cool though, because we've been able to flourish side by side and support each other during that. We've always been neighbors during a lot of conventions. And that is, and that definitely is, we've developed a relationship with them. How we started, so Gehenna actually started as it was a New England gaming group that was focused on World of Darkness, I believe is the original story behind it. And the idea was they were going to run a bunch of World of Darkness games, mainly Vampire, and it was all going to be interconnected. You were going to be able to sign up and play in these games, but it was just really local to the area. And then they got in their heads like, hey, maybe we should, they went to I think it was PAX East 2019 was the very first time they ran a few tables, but PAX was the first time they actually had a room. And then they were like, well, we're going to run World of Darkness games. And then from there, it's just kind of been well, we don't have to run just World of Darkness. We can run other stuff that we like. And we were all big horror nerds. So horror has always been our bread and butter, our kind of main genre. But we've definitely branched out with that with a ton of other stuff. But that's kind of like what we focus on at first. I'm like, all right, we'll run World of Darkness, or we'll run Horror D&D, or we'll run Liminal Horror, or some of these other systems, or our Call of Cthulhu. And it's just like kind of over the years, like it just grew and grew and grew because people, we used to have a really interesting model. It's just like, okay, you run as many games as there are days and you get a badge of us. So it was really cool for GMs to be like, oh, I can run 3 games and get a whole badge of PAX. You enjoy the rest of the con. And then from there, I think it came. Free League was actually one of our first deals that we were going to make with a publisher. And they saw the amount of numbers that we were pulling. They were like, all right, this team of like 30 GMs is able to pull like this amount of games. And, so obviously they're getting a lot of tables. And I don't think for PAX U anything, I don't think we've ever been not sold out of seats.
Wow, that's crazy.
Which is, yeah. And I mean, like this year we ran, I want to say, I would have to pull up the chart, but you think of 20 tables running at 3 different spots across 3 different days. So you do those math, how many games, how many players, not a single empty, like not a single ticket left whenever, push came to shove. And then so Free League was the first person to really kind of see value in what we did and be like, hey, we would like to, pay you to run our games. And really the pay just came out to, we want to be able to pay our GMs, to run our games. And then PAX would, saw that we were running all these games and everything. And we're like, well, we talked about that, like the whole value of the ticket. Like that's the thing, like a convention lives and dies by what, the convention goer can do.
Right.
Sometimes it's, and it's not just going to like an exhibitor hall and like buying stuff. Like maybe it is for some people, but I know if I were to buy, a $90 ticket or a $100 ticket, or in Gen Con space, like a $150 ticket for a whole weekend, I want to do more than just being allowed to like buy stuff with even more.
It's not, I don't want admission to a mall,
Exactly. And so that's where your stuff like panels come in. But I think what the beautiful thing about PAX Unplugged and all these other kind of tabletop gaming conventions, it's that not everyone has the friend group to constantly play these games. And so this allows you to gather everyone. And then for one weekend, you can pretty much like play with any table, play whatever game you can get into, and just enjoy your hobby and not worry about, oh, can this person make this game this week? Do we have enough people? Does this GM know what they're doing? You can kind of write those worries away and just enjoy. And the downside of working like a booth and everything and working all that is that you kind of don't get to do that anymore. So like I haven't been able to run a game in a very long time, unfortunately, and I do kind of miss it, or even playing one. And I miss doing that at PAX. But seeing the people that come up to me and be like, hey, we really love the game we played at Gehenna, that was like really cool. And so kind of like after that, now we've met a lot of awesome publishers, a lot of like independent publishers that normally wouldn't be able to get these games in front of people unless they came themselves and like had their own dedicated team. Now they can utilize us and we can kind of help like showcase their games to the masses. So it has been this really like cool thing. I mean, like I think we're always going to offer like Vampire the Masquerade, just because like that's kind of like where we came from, so we don't ever want to forget our roots. But I mean, Gehenna's growing each year. It's been, I think we're getting close to D&D numbers, which I think is so wild to me. That
you mean how many games you run?
In terms of like how many players in game? Yeah, because I think we ran as much as Adventures League does at PAX U, but also bear in mind that we also run like 8 different games, different games where they just run one.
Right.
So we haven't gotten to do like the one solo game sellout that much, but like we're definitely combating with numbers, which is great. Which it's not like a competition, but it is being D&D is the most popular game. It's a good measuring stick.
Exactly. It's a bar to it's that brass ring kind of thing. What's the strategy for hiring GMs and DMs? Like, are you looking for people who already know a system and can run a system, or is there a time where you're like, hey, we want to hire four GMs to play this game. If you don't know how to play it, do you teach people how to play it, and how to GM? Like, how does that whole thing work?
Yeah, so the recruitment process is pretty simple. Funny enough, as we run games, we also like actively recruit, because like most games is gonna have one person that's like, hey, I'm the forever GM and I would like to GM with you guys. So we link them to a recruitment form. It's a pretty extensive form. It kind of like gets some preliminary vetting out of the way. It learns about what they're kind of comfortable with and what games they have, they've played and whatnot. And then we do a pretty good vetting process. We'll meet with them. We'll talk with them. If we can schedule a game with them. And usually like your first like event with us is going to be like a preliminary one. We'll put you in like minimum amount of games just to see how you did. We have full surveys at the end of all of our games, so we're able to touch back and like, did people love playing with you? Great. We get to tell you about that. Was there some stuff we need to talk to you about? Then great, we can also do that. And that's not to say one survey is going to get you kicked out of the Gehenna team. I don't think we've ever to be completely honest, I don't think we've ever had to do that in our multi-year run, which has been awesome.
I was gonna ask, you before we clicked record, you said, you could ask me the hard-hitting questions, and I was gonna ask you what was the worst you've witnessed. But if you haven't had to get rid of anybody,
so not off of like I don't want to say not off of like skill in terms of like being like a bad GM, because I don't really think there are bad GMs.
I can imagine people get nervous.
Yeah, and I think that's fine.
Yeah.
And as long as they're willing to try, we've had to like issues with scheduling. That's the thing. Like reliability is huge for us, and we get it. But some people like it's just like, hey, it's just too often, too much, and I get it. It's just maybe it's not not for you right now. And then I think I can only think of one like GM we ever had to let go because they didn't use safety. They didn't want to use the safety tools and refused to. Even though they agreed to beforehand, but that's the only time that a GM has ever been like, hey, this isn't working. We got to make sure everyone is cool going into this. And this is like pretty minor, honestly.
For those who don't know, safety tools are very simple. It's usually a form of some kind where players at the table can just tell you what they are and aren't comfortable with. Typically, it is what they're not comfortable with, so that as a GM, you could kind of avoid those topics. For me, I have two that one is weird, and the other one is just doesn't make me feel good. And the weird one is romance between me and a GM. Like, I don't want to force my GM to make, somebody to have sexy conversations with me. That's just weird. Like, I don't want to do it. Like, it just, if you want to do it, that's fine. But like, don't have any, it's weird. Then the second one is children in peril. And it's typically like, if it's an unavoidable thing, if it's like, oh, rescue this group of kids that are being, held by like a super villain, or like if it's more fantastical like that, it's different. But when you have like kids in a burning building, like that sucks. Like that's just really, I have two young kids, and it puts me in the mindset, and like your brain just takes over, and it doesn't make the game fun. You know what I mean? So I could see how that would be extremely important, especially for Gehenna, who's trying to do this on a much bigger scale and bigger scale. These safety tools become much more important because you're getting a lot of people you don't know from Adam. You don't know who these people are. You don't know where they come from. They could have PTSD, serving in the military. They could be whatever. You don't know what it is. And these safety tools are very important. Now, with that part being said and done, how the hell do you navigate that at a con? Because that's like that's like as fast as humanly possible. You need to, a GM has to like accommodate six people they've never met before. So
we run horror games. That's going to require at least a pretty moderate entry of trust to the table. There's a very famous consent list that was formulated by Monty Cook Games.
Yep.
And so we actually took the base idea for that and we personalized it to horror. So we added more specific questions about certain triggers and stuff like that. And so we offer for free on our website to the PDF form fillable is our Gehenna gaming consent sheet. This is passed out to every person at the table. It lets you mark off, hey, like we do a green light, yellow light, red light system. Green is like, this is stuff I'm okay with. Yellow light is like, this is stuff I'm okay with being mentioned. But I either don't want it directed at me or I don't want it right on camera per se. And then red light is like, please don't include this at all. And so getting that down, we can alongside, like, we actually have a rating question, like, okay, what rating would you like this to be? It's
Okay.
very easy to calibrate off the bat. Now, like, in terms of the GMs, like, adjusting to it, I mean, this is the big thing about, like, talking about, like, what scenarios we're running. I never, and this is something, like, scenarios that could be good for your table might not could be good for conventions, because, like, sometimes we have minors playing at the games and whatnot, like 13-year-olds, 16-year-olds, and it's like, okay, like, I get it. I get that you want to run your ultra gory torture Call of Cthulhu adventure. I completely get it and understand, but might not be the best for the table. Or if you're going to run that, you let us know ahead of time so we can, sometimes we'll put content warnings and we'll warn people, like, hey, this is a heavy table. Would you prefer to see there or something else? So at least maybe we can give you, like, enthusiastic people. But everything at the end of the day, like, the consent form is like the kind of iron checkpoint. It's the GM looks at it and then they need to adjust stuff on the fly.
Right.
And if there really is something that's unavoidable, because, like, a very common one that we get a lot is harm to animals. And it's like, okay, in horror, that often is a theme. So if you have something where it's like, hey, like, the whole game is about, like, fighting a pack of wolves and, like, killing them, and, like, if that's not cool, then maybe we need to find you another table. And we'll accommodate and we'll do that. We've done something similar to that before. So it's all about making sure that the players feel like, hey, that they're being taken care of, but also that our GMs are going to feel comfortable running their scenario for people as well. Because, like, I always say that, like, safety tools are also, like, I like calling them calibration tools as well, because in a lot of cases you can go harder when you have them, because what everyone's down with and what everyone's not, so you can just focus really into what people are down with, and kind of take it from there.
Yeah. Yeah. Here's a weird one.
Yeah.
Coming from, some of a little bit of the corporate world, right? HR, that kind of thing. This is going to be weird, but do you look at, now, obviously the GMs are contractors, right? You treat them as contractors. Are there any sort of, like, non-negotiables that in order to protect Gehenna Gaming in any way? Like, how do you navigate that minefield?
Like, we have a GM code of conduct as well as a player code of conduct that is printed and always displayed on our tables.
Okay.
While the player code of conduct is, the GM code of conducts all receive it. And it basically just covers, like, any, like, base stuff. And in terms of, like, handling things like HR per se, I mean, a GM should feel protected. So, like, if a GM has come to us and been like, hey, I don't feel comfortable running with these people with the group, can you step in and say something? Like, there are situations we've had to done that, and we've done that, and we're can I curse on this? Am I allowed to?
Oh yeah.
I don't play around with that shit. I don't I'm very much on a fuck around and find out principle.
Yeah.
Which, and sometimes people get mad, whether it's about the seating, whether it's about their games or their roles, and you have to come in and kind of lay the law down a little bit.
Yeah.
We take that very seriously. Our GMs know that going in, and our players know that going in, that at any point in time, if you cross a line, if you ignore warnings, that we can just, eject you from the game. And that's something that PAX understands. That's something that we all understand, and all our players are told. Yeah, social contract. And it's like, man, like, we already have a bad, it's because of the idea of, like, the hobby is, like, very nerdy. There's already, like, a kind of a bad, like, stereotype around gamers already. Yeah. So it's like, why further this any further? Like, most of these people are coming here are adults. You're an adult. The kids know how to act as adults. Yeah. So just be proper. Like,
yeah. I was thought that was interesting because, like, how do you police it as your crew out there doing their thing are much larger than the people running the thing. Like, it's just larger than you in a way. It's larger than the company. At some point it gets just wild, right? So that always fascinated me. Like, okay, you have your vetting process, you have all this, but now
we have our own enforcer standing by, just to kind of, like, further clarify that. And then we also have the PAX U enforcers that have been amazing, which, like, if something really serious happens that, like, something that is big is about to go down, we can easily tap one of them, and they're available to us to, we haven't had to eject anyone out of the convention yet.
Mm.
But definitely stuff has gotten close to that. I'll say that. I won't mention specifics, but definitely for sure.
Somebody just going into PvP, just taking things into their own hands, just wanting to kill everyone at the
Just,
table. No.
just,
We can move on. We can move on.
just
But
mad at the process. That's all I'll say.
I gotcha. How do you how is that different from when you're doing like a private event, or you're doing yeah, I guess a private event would be like the best sort of,
Yeah.
because you're kind of sending people out then at that point into places where you may not have an enforcer, you may not be there to kind of, you know,
Yeah. So
be an eye in the sky, as it were.
no, absolutely. I mean, every time we've done a private event, I mean, we've always had a base level of staff. So it's never going to be we're going to send like
A GM by
a,
themselves.
a GM by themselves.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
If
gotcha.
we
Okay.
can, we'll send a staff, or we'll link them up with the event staff there so that they know who to
Okay.
go to and who can like help them out. I mean, our events that we've done have been like, nights at bars and stuff like that, where even though if alcohol's involved, it's never gotten extremely rowdy. So it's not like we're going to, like, we haven't done like a private like business event per se yet,
Okay.
or like someone's like bachelor party. Although someone has asked us about that, and I was like, I don't know. It never happened, but it was an interesting idea. Like
Yeah.
we've never come across that, but our top priority is keeping our people safe. And at any point in time, like even with bad vibes, I would I would say, hey, if it's not a fuck yes, it must be a fuck no. So
Interesting. Okay. I
yeah.
like that. Good motto. Okay. Well, you are also publishing
Yes.
now, and you're not only publishing, you are creating. And I want to hear all about it. So we got Eldritch Automata, right? Or Automa. I can never say this
Honestly,
word.
everyone pronounces it differently. So you do you. That's
Automata. Anyway, Eldritch Automata, it's coming soon. Tell us all
yes.
about it.
Yeah, so funny enough, this is a game that kind of predated my existence with Gehenna. About 7 years ago, I really love mechs. I really love Evangelion. I really love Cosmic Horror. And my friends came to me and said, hey, we want to play a game based in the Evangelion world. And so there wasn't really a game that kind of fit what we wanted, the vibes we wanted. So I made one. And that was like the very super early prototype of Eldritch Automata, which was like powered by the apocalypse, like in its original state. We ran it. It was a lot of fun. And I kind of realized two things after that. I was like, one, this was a cool project and I could keep on with it. And two, that I really needed to kind of expand my rule set. So I started working on it just on and off, like throughout, whenever I wasn't on my day job, being like, all right, how do I make this better? And then eventually it evolved from being a fan game to being like, well, I should write my own lore for it. I remember I decided this at like, I want to say it was like 2018 NaNoWriMo. I was like, I should write the lore for my game. And so I wrote like 50,000 words of, I guess, like the base, like what would be considered the first draft of like the lore of the game. And then from there, I think it was like 2019, I had first discovered Alien RPG, and I really liked the Year Zero engine. I said, well, maybe I should like port this over to here, and like, because this kind of has the balance of like narrative and mechanics I like. And at that time, the license wasn't even open, so like this was all just kind of a pipe dream. But then a year later, the license opened. I was with Gehenna. I'd written a considerable amount, and I went to my business partner Ian. I said, hey, I have this game that I've been writing. We've always talked about publishing, and like at that point we had published a few like vampire supplements, but what about like our own original system? And so I showed him off, I ran him through it, and he was like, I love this, let's do this. And then 2 years from there, here we are now. So
That's awesome.
It's bolt of lightning. I don't know, lightning in a bottle. I don't know if we'll ever get that story again, but I guess the moral of that story is just like, if you have an idea, just keep working at it, and then maybe you'll be able to publish it someday.
That's awesome. Tell me about the system. Tell me how it differs. Yeah.
So it's a Year Zero engine based system. So it's D6 and dice pool. the game. I'm sorry. I realized you asked about what the game was and not the history of the game, and I just defaulted into the
I want
history of the
both,
game.
and I was going to ask you both anyway.
Okay,
So
cool.
we got the history out of the way. Now I want to
Yeah.
know what it's all about. Like, how
Yeah,
do I play it?
So it's a D6 dice pool system, and it's about being in giant mechs fighting cosmic horrors and biblically accurate angels. Is like the kind of short pitch that I've given.
We're going to stop there. Biblically accurate angels.
Yes, they're not really angels because I don't want to confirm the divine in my game, but very much so. It's about fighting things that are largely out of your incomprehension while piloting giant robots that may or may not be alive. Spoiler alert, they're very much alive.
Heard that.
It's like a play to lose system. It's a game about power fantasy meets psychological and cosmic terror. It's about being powerful and in control until you're not. Passing the buck down until you can't pass it down anymore, and you have to reap what you sow. But it's also like a game about hope and interpersonal relationships, which is kind of, might be interesting for the people on the outside. That might seem weird, but honestly, for a lot of mechs and a lot of like cosmic horror, like that's very integral and integral to the story and like the narrative overall of those type of media. Just like your interconnection and your relationships with other human beings and how you are able to navigate that. So like, not only is this a game where you can like, punch a Cthulhu like being in the face with a giant robot, but this is also a game that gives you mechanics for hanging out with your best friend. And then that gives you dice bonuses, which you can then use to punch a Cthulhu-like monster in the face with a giant robot.
More punches. Yeah. So you're playing the pilot of a mech.
Yep.
And are you role playing only the pilot, or are you role playing the personality? Like, do these mechs have their own? You said that they're very much alive. Do they have their own like personalities, or like Transformers out there? Just
So not like talking in terms of like we're gonna have a full conversation, but more like feeling. So like you can like the pilots, when they interface with the automata, they actually like the cockpit is known as the ego chamber, and it's because the consciousness connects. And like one of the mechanics around the game is that you have this resource that each pilot has called ego, and they have to spend ego to activate the more supernatural and like powerful abilities of their automata. But you only have a finite amount of that, and when your ego hits zero, the pilot loses the sense of self. They don't know who they are anymore, and they just believe that they are the automata. So the automata, what would like they were once like the controller or rider. Now the automata is like, oh, you don't know who you are anymore. You don't recognize yourself as a human being. You are now a battery to me, and I will do whatever I want. And that's what we call it's a mechanic called going berserk in our game.
Interesting. Is that like, I don't know, maybe this is a spoiler, but is that like the automata's goal?
Oh, to make you go berserk? Absolutely. I mean, it's definitely not a spoiler, because like I've been pretty open, and I feel like the book itself is pretty open about like, yeah, the automatas are not a good thing. They are just the only thing that works.
Interesting. Okay.
It's like they are dangerous. These are weapons they are not glory like glorious. These are weapons we should be very afraid of using. It's just we have no other choice because these are the only things that work.
It's a necessary evil kind of thing.
Exactly. Yeah. In a perfect world, the automata would be destroyed alongside the horrors and the seraphs.
Interesting. But it's just the last hope. It's like you gotta kind of it's like when the humans partner up with Predator to take on the alien.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, all right, man. Listen, you're used to hunting us, but this mama alien is going cuckoo. Help us out,
a little
man.
less playing by the rules that the Predator does, but yeah, honestly, and like we have like a ton. Like you're essentially they've built copies of like, they use the template of primordial gods they found, like underneath the earth that have like unnerved, and that's what they were like. Hey, we should make a giant robot out of this. And it's funny because like one of the things it's like, well, how do they get their powers, or their abilities to do that is because they are made to that specification, they are able to do that. And that is why the automatas look like, are humanoid, and they're not just tanks. That is why the automatas need a human pilot. They can, they're not
Because they were
drone.
made by humans.
They're made by humans, but they need to be made in the specific way.
Interesting.
It's like,
Okay.
yeah, and the power of and like of your consciousness, of your ego, is very important, because that's the power source of the automata itself. That's how it actually activates. And there's this really cool thing, like one of my favorite things that we've done, is there's the idea that every automata and enemy in the game possesses what's called an ego field. And this is kind of like, if you've ever watched Evangelion, it's the absolute terror field, which is like the orange little mist that comes around them that, like, if you were to fire a gun at them, it would just stop all the bullets. But if you were to hit it with something else that has an ego field, you could potentially break through that. So it's kind of why the automata are necessary. Like, you're literally using your own consciousness to shape it into a weapon and a shield.
That's cool.
So there's a lot of like psychology around like what that does to a person. We play with a lot of trauma in our game, but I don't like it's the setting is grimdark. I'm not going to say the setting is not grimdark, but there is a very big theme of hope in the game. Another cool mechanic is every character has the ability to unlock this thing called a hope talent, which is a one-time use ability that is like, hey, see that spotlight? It's mine. I'm going to get the super overpowered buff for this fight. I'm going to save everyone. Watch me shine. And it's different for every like pilot archetype. But it's the moment for every player to have like their moment of the campaign of the game.
What does progression look like?
So progression is built off of so you get a certain amount of experience points every session, which is dependent on a checklist that you go through. And a lot of it is not just like it's not like super mechanical in terms of like, oh, you fought this many people. It's like, okay, did I take steps to accomplish my ambition? Did my regret hinder me? Did I defeat a powerful foe? Did I grow closer to my teammates? And you kind of all answer that together. And that decides how many experience points you get. And then those experience points can be used to buy other talents, buy more skills, which skills, if you inherently level those up, you inherently level the stats attached to them as well. So it's very like a very free form progression. It isn't like level 1, level 2. It's more like point buy across the board.
Oh, cool. That's cool. And the archetypes have their own specific talents that are only specific to an archetype?
Yeah, yes and no. So there are 13 pilot archetypes in the game, and there are 13 automata archetypes in the game. So this is like kind of the really cool thing that we've done. You pick 2 archetypes when you create a character.
Yeah.
So one for yourself, one for your giant robot, and they each have a half of your stats. So altogether, you have like, I want to say it's like over 155 different combinations of stats that you can have, like just by combining archetypes. Each archetype comes with 6 talents, and you get 2 from each of your chosen archetypes when you start. And then when you go to buy another talent, you don't have to stay in your tree. It costs a little bit more, but you can go to another archetype and take one of their talents if you like.
And are there ways to are there narrative reasons that would happen? Like, do you tie it in narratively? Like, oh, if you're going to a different tree, it's because you did something that a different mech would do or whatever. Like,
yeah, absolutely. Like, for the automata, it's more of like, oh, this is how they're developing your giant robot and build what they're building onto it. For the pilots, it's very much like all the talents for the pilots are more in the narrative aspect and the role-playing aspect of it, which is kind of like it's been one of my favorite principles, is that I want to be able to get role playing and role playing. Like, I want those 2 players at the table to kind of find a divide. I've always said, like, I want to be able to reward the person that has an awesome 20-minute scene just of straight dialogue, but I also want to let the mechanics junkie have a reason to have that 20-minute scene as well and feel like they got something out of it. So the pilot archetype is really the way we've done that, where all the bonuses that you get there that are more through like role playing narrative triggers, which of course, like, sometimes it doesn't come. It's not super strict on how they come off, and then that's where the GM, or as we call it, the GA steps in. But yeah, so like that your pilot archetype kind of reflects like what is your character's way of dealing with things and how they deal with the relationship and how they deal with the world around them. So like, say for example, we have a really cool one of my favorite archetypes is one called the Sheltered, which is like, hey, you are a person that has been, you're trained to be a pilot. You've never seen war. You've never had this bad stuff happen to you. You are like the perfect snowflake. And we're going to explore what this war will do to you because you are not hardened like that. Whereas there's like another archetype that's like very much about being a part of a legacy, like a bloodline. And it's okay, I come from a military family, and all they've done for all these generations is fought these creatures, and this is what I have to do. And I have, my everyone breathing down my neck, and I have like
Expectations.
expectations.
Yeah.
And so it's easy to kind of like take two of those and be like, all right, well, you were the Sheltered, but now you're like realizing that you need to be very responsible. So now you're dipping into the hyper responsible archetype, or the hedgehog's dilemma, or whatnot. So like you can justify it any way you'd like. The mechanics are there to support it, and that's kind of the idea, is that the mechanics are there to support your narrative, but ultimately what you do with the story is going to be the prime driver of it all.
When can people expect to have this released to the wild?
So we've hit a little bit of recent delay, but we're looking at Q3, Q4 of this year.
Okay.
We funded back last July. And it has been my dream to be like, hey, let's put this game out within a year of it getting funded. Because I don't know about you, but I don't like backing a game and then getting it 4 or 5 years later when I've forgotten about it. Like, I want people to be hyped the entire time they're waiting for this game. And then they can be like, okay, like they made this book in a year. The next book's not going to take that long because it's not going to be another core rule book. And this is going to be a product we continue to support. Like, I never wanted to make a single core rulebook. I want to make a game line.
Oh yeah, yeah. And for the record, I like it both ways, because I like when I back something and completely forget about it, and it shows up on my doorstep, and I'm like, "Holy shit! Look,
It's a
it's
pleasant
here!"
surprise.
Yeah, look what came today. And you can pre-order it if you'd like at gehennagaming.com/Eldritch Autonoma. You can go right there. You can click the little pre-order thing.
It goes right to the backer kit.
Right to the backer kit. Only $55, which is a steal for these core rule books.
Yeah, and if you want to try out the car before you buy it, we have a free quick launch. It's like a 50-page quick launch that has a scenario, has pre-gens, has all the base rules in it. Yeah, and you can try out the game for yourself.
And if you want to watch people play, you could go to old YouTube. Go to Gehenna's YouTube, and there's a
ton of actual plays.
Yeah, there's an actual play on there.
And if you're ever at a convention like Gen Con or PAX U, you could just play it for yourself as well. At PAX U, we ran 60 tables of Eldritch Automata.
Oh man, okay.
And they all sold out, and we sold the physical copies of the quick launch. And let me tell you, I can get pretty emotional, but I haven't been that emotional a mile when like a group of people came up and be like, yo, this is one of the best games I've ever played. So I love to hear what you liked about it, what you didn't. The backers are actually right now on a feeding frenzy because we just released the first 8 chapters of them, like the full character creations. So they're able to adjust. We have this massive feedback form for them, so they can suggest changes to the game, and we can actually tune up the game even more.
That's awesome. Well, now it's time to slip into a very, very comfortable outfit called Rapid Fire.
Okay, boom.
This is where I am going to get to know you.
Awesome. Okay, here we go.
Yeah, I got 2 cameras, so you're in this one, but the audience sees this one. You're just gonna answer off the top of the old noggin, and we're gonna get your.
Should I put the Jeopardy music on? The Who Wants to Be With?
No, because this vibe is more Animaniacs version of Jeopardy. Lucky Bob as the contestant kind of thing. These are a bunch of questions here. Some of these I've asked other guests, but it's really just about, your off the cuff answers. What is the best scented candle?
Oh, I like.
Oh, I lost you there.
Oh,
I think your volume just peaked. What was your answer? I'm sorry.
Oh, I like tropical scents.
You like tropical scents, like
stuff,
like fruits and berries and whatnot.
Yeah, like mangoes and pineapples. I think it's just like my Latin flair, my heritage. But I love that stuff.
Got it. Nice. How many 5-year-olds do you think you could take out?
Ooh. Wait. Okay, this is a. Can I ask a question? Response? No. Okay, no. That's not the point of rapid fire. I could probably 13 immediately came to mind.
13. A baker's dozen. 5-year-olds.
They're out all at once.
Yeah.
All at once 13. Yeah, I think at anything more they'd overwhelm me.
Interesting. You ever cheat on a test?
Absolutely.
Oh yeah. What color has the worst personality? Like what color of the crayon box has the worst personality?
Blue. They're definitely so full of themselves.
Yeah, I could see that.
Assholes.
Just like everybody likes me. I'm the best combo. Blue and gold.
I feel like if someone's like, "What's your favorite color?" Blue. I'm like,
they're like a bro, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like they got that like early 2000s tape up.
Yeah, like, they got the sunglasses on.
Just like the orange, like tan in a
can.
They
watch Jersey Shore as a serious, serious like show.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Do you believe in aliens?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's almost impossible not to believe that they're out there somewhere. It's like, what are we doing? You know the phrase "pie in the sky"?
Yes.
What pie is it?
Oh man! Immediately, I just thought like, I honestly just thought blueberry. I don't know why. I guess
we were talking about blue, maybe.
Yeah. I was just blue, and also blueberry pie. Like it's kind of common, but not really. Like go out to your store and see if you can find a blueberry pie. You might not be able to.
Yeah. It's like one of those like also ands. Like there's, the one blueberry pie, and then there's like the apple, which is all over the place.
Yeah.
And maybe a pumpkin, depending on the season. But then there's that one blueberry pie where you're like,
who bought this?
Why is this here? Yeah, no, I get it. Why do cats have 9 lives?
Because they're not responsible. And they don't know how to take care of themselves as much as they like to think so. And they really need to start getting jobs. I'm tired of these cats.
Hell yeah,
walking around freely. They need to start getting jobs and paying taxes like the rest of us.
They are the only like creature on Earth that could just walk into your house, and that's where they live now.
Exactly, the squatter rights.
They are the squatters of the animal kingdom. Pen or pencil?
Pen. I'm not a barbarian.
Yeah,
give me a pen. Give me a pen.
Pencil or a pen. Yeah, you don't like. You don't like the option of the eraser. You just
it breaks.
Yeah,
sometimes if I don't sharpen enough, a pen though, like a pen for like if you're running constantly for like 3 hours, you're gonna get consistency out of a pen. I just like pen.
Yeah. I'm a little scared of a pen sometimes, but like if I'm writing like something I'm giving someone, like the pen could be scary because you're like,
honestly, every time I hear someone like I prefer pencil, I'm like, you gotta have commitment issues. Yeah, that's how I feel. Yeah.
I don't want to be judged. Like if I make a spelling error, it's like shit. Now they're gonna think I'm stupid, but it's really just that I'm dumb. There is a difference.
What's cooler? You're just writing on your pen. You're like, oh, I made a mistake. I can't get rid of it. Just keep going. Or you're stopping in front of them, and then they see you erasing it, and you're like tearing the paper, and it never looks as good as it did the first time.
It never does. You're right. You might have swayed me on this one. Octopi, in the ocean.
Yeah. Yes.
Do you think they might be aliens?
I think they might be affiliated. Same with crabs. I mean, not for anything. Everything goes closer to crab every year. So if not, it's aliens.
Interesting. You know that octopi, like half of their DNA strands or whatever, like they have a longer DNA structure than anything on Earth, and they share 50% of their DNA with nothing on Earth. Like nothing else comes close to them. We don't know where it came from. We don't know what it is. And I think they came here on an asteroid. Yeah, that's what I think. They were frozen in a frozen lake asteroid that hit the ocean. They melted and they were like, oh, where am I? And now they're in here. Now they're driving drones out of the ocean over New Jersey.
I can believe that. Yeah. they are in charge of the Chinese spy balloon. Exactly. Whatever happened to that? They mentioned that last year, and we never heard about that again.
I mean, it's like whatever. They're taking pictures. What's the worst? Let's see. Human beings can now infuse their DNA with animal DNA and gain the powers of an animal. Mm-hmm. What animal do you choose to fuse with?
Oh my god, I instantly went to gorilla. I just want to be able to climb stuff.
You just want to be
And like,
extra you, like extra,
yeah,
like just the perfect muscular structure of a human.
I feel like a silverback gorilla sometimes running through the jungle.
Hell yeah.
I feel that in my soul, and I would like my appearance to match my soul.
And not get as winded.
Yeah, exactly.
Like they
And like,
never get winded.
and just enjoy a nice, like, rousing trip to Cincinnati with no worry whatsoever about
yeah.
what'll happen to me.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. I think they know more than what we think they know.
Oh yeah, they do.
I think they're thinking. They understand what's going on. I think.
Like in Jurassic World, they're like, "Hey, we should put raptors and make them into military weapons." I'm like, "Why aren't we turning gorillas into military weapons?" Now, a gorilla could mess up at least 25 5-year-olds instantly.
Oh man, I'm way more than that. Are you kidding? They could take on hundreds.
Yeah.
They will eat 13 before you can even blink. All right, let's get a couple more in here. What is your favorite classic monster, like the Universal monsters? What's your favorite?
Oh, Universal. See, I went to D&D for a second. Out of my favorite Universal, man, I've really always loved the are aliens a classic? No, they're not. Not the Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That I'll take that for sure.
Yeah, Creature of the Black Lagoon. I just always thought he was cool. I thought he was misunderstood. A lot of people have a lot of confused feelings about him now, and you know what? I respect that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. Okay, and the final question. Now, you are creating a tabletop RPG right now, Eldritch Automa. It's going to be out at the end of the year, probably, hopefully, maybe fall-ish, Q3, Q4. You've already established that.
Yeah.
Your next book, okay? You get to choose any IP.
I already got it.
What IP?
I'm going to phrase that by saying I'm going to ask you 2 questions after this, completely unrelated.
Interesting.
But it's going to be to your interest. At least I hope it's to your interest.
Okay.
Or else your background is failing me. Resident Evil would be the IP that I choose. I think I've always had this idea of like being able to do a really fun like ammo management system using like dice pools, and like certain weapons have higher rated die and everything, and like the idea that like, oh, you could make a gun prop that you could store the dice in as ammo, like, and you lose it as you're using attacks. I always thought that was cool. And I always wanted to make a game where the whole idea of it was just squad-based combat, like in terms of like your abilities don't help you, but your abilities help the people around you, and all it is helping the people around you.
Ooh, that'd be really cool. They make those bullet dice. I don't know if you've seen those that like you could spin in a chamber. Like that would be like the perfect. Like
no, absolutely. I have a buddy that all he wants to do is he's making a Western like that. So I totally respect that.
Yeah, that's cool.
All right, now I have 2 rapid fire questions for you. Just for you.
I like it.
Okay, 1. What is the best arc of Dragon Ball Z?
The best arc for me is the Android/Cell saga. So it's kind of like bleeding into it, but that arc, that saga,
amazing,
scared the shit out of me.
It's supposed to be the end. I think it would have been a better end than the Buu saga. I'm going to be honest.
The Buu saga, I felt like they were like, we don't want it to end. What could we do? And so they went, well, we did science. Let's do magic. Okay, cool. They did magic. But the Gennaro, like, revenge tour and then Cell just gobbling them all up and being like, holy shit, he's all of them. And he was trained on all the Z fighters. And how could anyone, like, at that time, I was waiting for the VHS tapes, because I was an uncultured swine. I could only watch the dubs because I'm an idiot. Actually, I'm a dummy, not an idiot. There's a difference. I would go to a local store and buy the VHSs as they would come out, and they would have 4 episodes on them. And then like the spines would make like the picture of
absolutely. Thing. Yeah, I used to have the Super Android 13 movie I bought from Blockbuster.
Hell yeah. And when those would come out, man, I would wear those shits out. The tracking would be so messed up. And then finally Cartoon Network kind of caught up and I was able to finish it there. But like, I'm loving Daima right now. But yeah, it's gotta be the Android/Cell saga for sure. Did you had another one? You said you had 2
I had another
questions.
question. Okay. Yeah, I had another question. All right. Could Rocky Balboa beat Krillin? I was really gonna ask could beat Yamcha, but I feel like he could beat Yamcha pretty easily.
Well, Krillin is the strongest human fighter.
This is Rocky for Rocky Balboa. Rocky
superhero Rocky. I get it. No, that's who I pictured anyway. Like abs where people shouldn't have abs. I get it. I think Krillin will win because Krillin can, energy. Just he mastered this.
Do you think it's like a stomp fight, or do you think it's like kind of close?
Krillin doesn't have the heart for it to be a stomp fight. So it's going to be fairly even until Krillin needs to do something drastic to save his own life.
Okay.
That's how I feel.
Respectable answer.
But I also feel like there's a possibility Goku is kind of modeled after, right? Now that I think of it, like the dumb, lovable, like just incredible, just impossibly powerful fighter, but like I think dumb as a bag of rocks.
Kid Goku, like Dragon Ball, like pre, Red Ribbon Army Goku. I think he has his number. Yeah.
I just feel like they were like, that's a really good question.
Yeah.
I'm probably going to think about that for the next few nights.
Yeah. Hit me up in like 2 months. You're like, I've broken this down. Yeah.
No, does he wear gloves? Are they 14-ounce gloves? Like, whatever. Now we're getting in the weeds. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, that has been DevDive Side Table. Nick, thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah,
this was an absolute pleasure hanging out with you. Maybe I could join a game online or something because I'd love to try out Eldritch. I am so bad at learning new systems on my own. Like I have to play them to learn them. That's really the only way I could do it.
No, I feel the same way.
Maybe I'll get to do that.
There might be something in the future. I can't say anything for sure now without like fully committing. But yes, there is something we are planning that hopefully we can make that dream a reality soon.
Awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to follow us on social media, we're at Indie Rift pretty much anywhere. We're on Blue Sky. That's where we're going to kind of try and make our like new home, although X is kind of hard to get away from because we have so many contacts on there. But if you're on Blue Sky, give us a follow over there. Of course, if you're watching this on YouTube, consider hitting subscribe. That would help us out a whole lot. And of course, we're on all podcast services, including Spotify, what's the other one? Apple, and yada yada. We're on everything. So you could always subscribe to us over there. If you want to help us on Patreon, you can go to patreon.com/IndieRift, just like our Patreon producer, Colton the Journeyman Nestler. Thank you so much, Colton, for all of your support, and thank you to all of our patrons. Nick, where could everybody find you? Where could everybody find Gehenna and the like?
Yeah, so Gehenna you can find at www.gehennagaming.com. You can find me on all socials at NoblemanNick, NoblemanNick. I am most active on Blue Sky right now. I still do have a Twitter.
Oh yeah.
Not super active there anymore. Going to be completely honest for reasons that are obvious.
They're pretty obvious.
But yeah, come hit me up on Blue Sky. Always willing to talk. Always willing to chat. And thank you again for all this.
Awesome. And all the links will be in the show description. So just click them and take you right there. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, viewers. Thank you, listeners. And as always, please be excellent to each other.